mean, like this is not for use, it's just for your own personal use, isn't it? Tape.
It's for the book.
Yeah, I know, but you're only using the tape to...
Yeah, for the help of the book.
I don't have to be like on the radio or something.
No.
Oh, yes, Fiona.
Do you want to speak like that? Well, we're just going to talk about your involvement with the Save the Otways campaign from the early days all the way through. So your first memory of the Save the Otways campaign was for that, was the
when I heard about the logging in the Five-Day water catchment. But I can't really remember just exactly when I heard about it, because one of the pivotal things was the fact that the kids in the school were getting sick and were told not to drink the water from the drinking fountains at school.
Right.
And to me that just seemed outrageous. Around about the same time there was a meeting in the mechanics hall, public meeting, which was absolutely packed with people. And I think at that time it was not Barwon Water, I think it was our own little...
Otway Water Board.
The water board, it was just called the water board.
Yeah.
And there were people there, but they didn't really want to talk. Well,
they were there at the meeting.
They were there at the meeting, but they got this other guy to sort of, this is like a kind of stooge, to stand up and say stuff about the water, because he wasn't an official, so it didn't matter really what he said, you know. And he just got up and said, look, we've got the purest water in the world. And I mean, up until the logging, we probably did, because it was coming just straight out of the forest to our house.
And that was the West Barham,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yes. And the forest's only about 10 kilometres from town. So it was probably pretty easy to just find straight to town. I don't know if they even had the reservoir at that stage. I'm not quite sure how they delivered it. I know all about the pipe that goes from the forest down to the town, because I lived really close to it for a time. And every now and then in a flood it would get broken and they would send in bulldozers and stuff and repair it. But anyhow, this dude got up at a meeting and he said, oh, we've got the purest water in the world and not to worry. And the proper officials sort of just kept in the background a bit. And then shortly after that, I think it was, that we found out that school kids were told not to drink the water and people were getting sick. And then the next thing was that they were going to chlorinate the water.
Chlorination of the water didn't happen until the 90s, though.
I'm not sure if that was in it. But it was a direct result of people actually getting sick, and that happened at the same time as it was logging. And one of the arguments of the various bureaucrats was that, oh well, you know, we've been doing this for ages, it's nothing new. What's your problem?
So the logging was
No, it had been going on for some time. There were, in fact, I actually went and visited old coops in the West Barham catchment. Sorry, West Barham. which was quite an old coop, and then they just moved a couple of kilometres further down the valley and were at it again. But like, it all tied in, just was right in the face.
And when was you actually had a blockade at the West Barrow, at one of the coops at the West Barrow?
Well, I was never actually involved in a blockade of...
To stop logging there?
To
direct action?
I was never involved in direct action. I went in there a few times. It was a really long walk, and it was like a couple of kilometres down this mud track. And it was quite difficult to get to.
And you took people with you?
Yeah, and I went in with people, but every time I went in there, no one was working. I did have confrontation with truck drivers up at the road, at the proper road, the Finn's track, and was nearly assaulted by a driver there. But most of our aim was to just get publicity.
And to check the area.
Well, yeah, to find out what was going on. And we went in there several times and saw what was happening, but there was never actually any work happening in the times that I went in there.
What people, was it media that you took down there?
I did take some media in from Channel 2 once, yes. I don't know how that happened, but I was available and felt confident to do that. So I went in the car, in the media car, with a reporter and a cameraman and maybe a sound guy, I'm not sure. First of all, we went into some of the old forest near Mate's Rest, so that they could kind of get a before and after kind of view.
And this was when the National Park, the Otway National Park, had been declared?
No, well...
that was declared in the late 70s.
It probably was. It was not, the bit that we went to was not really old growth forest. It had been logged for some time, and there were old stumps and stuff.
But selectively old?
Probably, yeah.
Not detailed.
I remember seeing like big stumps, huge trees that had been fallen some time ago. But anyhow, we just dropped in there and they got a couple of shots. And then we went to up Bind Road to the track leading down to the coop in the West Barham, and I took the media crew down. It was very, very muddy, which meant, and it was also pretty wet, so it meant that it was very obvious where the runoff was carrying silt and mud into the drainage system, into the river, which ran directly into the collection point for the water supply. In fact, the media crew actually filmed some close-ups of muddy water running culverts down the side of the road. We just went down and they filmed around a bit, and of the actual coop, there were a whole lot of logs stacked up ready to go, but there was no one working. It was a pretty big journey for those people because it was like a couple of kilometres slogging through the mud. Should be able to chase up that report. I'm sure that the girl, it was a lady reporter, and her name was Schwartz, I think, Dominic Schwartz. I'm not sure of that, but I'm pretty sure that's her name, something like that. I went in a few times just out of curiosity to see what was going on. And we all wanted to do something that felt, the only thing I was familiar with was media, and so I thought we just got to get stuff. So I wasn't familiar with education at that time. Another time I went in there with a couple of guys who were hydrologists, and we walked down to the curb again, and then through the curb right down to the West Barham, which is just like passing through the bush. And then we walked down the West Barham for quite a way, and these hydrologists showed me how to identify silt in the water, where it eddies around little rocks and stuff you can see built up like little alluvial fans, and you can tell, even if the water looks nice and clear, you can tell by these little silt fans on the bottom that there is sediment being washed into the river at that point. So, with a bit of a learning curve.
And that we think that was probably, what, 84, 85. There was a moratorium placed on the logging of the water catchment in about 87 with John Kerner.
John Kerner actually came down one time, and friends of mine, Nick Price and Jackie, who lived up very, very, very close to that catchment, she actually went up and stayed at their place or visited them. Yeah, I remember that. We got things moving pretty much because it was so close to home. That was the only reason that we got a result fairly quickly, was the fact that with our drinking water was just down the road virtually, and people were getting sick, and it was a very local issue that was clearly defined, and they just had to stop it because it was too local. It wasn't somewhere miles and miles away. It was right there in your face, and politically it was not acceptable. So they stopped, and to shut us up, But there was, as far as I know, there was never any confrontation with workers. Not that I know. Not that I know.
So when after that time there was a period where nothing much was happening, and then there was in the 90s you had more involvement with the campaign and better logging in Otways.
Yes. I was really had a bit of a conflict because I come to live on that farm close to the West Barham River for a lifestyle of peace of mind and self-sufficiency. And peace of mind doesn't really work when you confront people and politics, So I wasn't really a political animal as such, but then I heard about this group starting up, and I thought, well, this is something I can kind of go and see about. So I went to the meeting and checked it out.
And that meeting was in Apollo Bay?
Yes, it was in the community centre of Otway Bay. I think Simon Bill and Gavin McPherson and a few other people. And
David Butt?
I can't remember. Probably. Maybe. And I was drawn into it regardless of my peace of mind, because I felt that I had the time and the energy to do something, and here was a structure that I could do it with.
So what your involvement with campaigning against the logging Otway at that stage involved what?
Well, just educating ourselves, basically, about going out and just looking at what was happening, because all this stuff's in public view, and you have to make an effort to find it. And the first couple of places I went to, I don't think there was any confrontation with workers. It was just a presence in order to attract attention, and also for us to familiarise ourselves with what was going on, where it was going on. I wasn't the sort of person that threw myself into learning all the details about how many tons of chips and how many saw logs and the whole political nature of the relationship between the NRE and the loggers and the contractors and the chip mills. And I mean, I was very naive, but I wanted to do something. I went along, and there were like-minded people there who I felt very comfortable with. So, and I'm always really comfortable in the bush and camping and roughing it. So I felt very comfortable and quite enjoyed going out and being there. Just being a presence and gradually learning what was going on. And learning, not learning, but becoming close friends with the other people, because this was needed to be a group effort, and the more people that were involved, the more clout we had. So up until that time, I didn't have many contacts in the green kind of movement, although I was quite concerned. I've actually done more work up in northern New South Wales than here. Yeah. But like, this is not something you go and do by yourself. And the more confident you are with your friends, then the better, the more effective you are, because you trust people who to back you up, or they trust you, and you know where they're coming from. But that takes time. It takes sitting around the campfire and tramping through the forest and doing all those things together to build up that rapport with the other people.
And what could you say would be, how did you see, have you seen a change in community attitudes to the issue of this logging?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people like me that were around, but they just lacked the focus, something to kind of all focus their attention. So, I mean, there's a lot of what we might call alternative people who lived around the Otways, and they didn't come here to be greenies. They came here to drop out and to lead a simple life, because part of it was a simple life is concerned about the environment, but also about their own peace of mind and so on. So once a core group began to form, then there was something that other people could gather around, because you need something to focus attention if you are interested. And that happened. More and more people came to blockade camps, more people came to meetings, and of course there was always the people who were really opposed, basically because they didn't really, all they knew about the issue was about people's jobs, or that's what they saw it as being about people's jobs.
And they just have to focus on the environment.
Well, probably not. I don't know.
Why do you think it's important? Why do you think it's important to save the environment?
I don't know.
Well,
It's self-evident, isn't it?
logging. Why did you think it's important to stop logging?
Because
Stop logging.
well, logging was just destroying the environment, and that's what we have to live in. You know, this is nature. It seems to make stuff better. Particularly clear felling. You know, clear felling is just devastation, absolutely on a massive scale, and the fact that it's for export wood chips and money, nothing. Like it's a few people's jobs and most of it's off to Japan for packaging or something. You know? It's not even for any real concrete worthwhile thing.
And what could you say what would be a highlight? You know, could you think of a particular highlight or incident or anything like that that stuck in your memory?
Oh, there's a few. Over the years, I just became more involved because I got to know people better and got to know the issues better, and felt more confident. So when it came to direct action, I was there with my friends and I was involved. Some of them. I suppose the most radical thing I was ever involved in was probably that blockade a few years ago, where I was actually shoved to the ground by a cop. And I've been threatened by lots a few times, but that was the actual time I ever had any physical abuse, and that was from a cop. It waited until my back was turned and then pushed me to shove me to the ground. And because it was a very large confrontation, there would have been about 30, 40 protesters there, and probably about the same amount of police. But there was a huge, and some of the police were not just the normal police, but they were special forces of some sort, tough dudes, and it was really remarkable. I was thinking about it. There was a few hectares of land there where we camped that had been logged, and it was still smouldering, and it was like some kind of
Smouldering from what?
from being burnt. Like after they logged, they burn all the rubbish on the ground. What they call it rubbish, all the branches and stuff they burn, so that theoretically, when they throw seed in, it will grow because mountain ash grows after the fire. So they end up with monoculture of whatever they want. But it just looked like what you might imagine Hades, you know, it's like bare blackened ground with smoke coming off it everywhere. And right next door to it was this pristine forest. And it's like they wanted to turn that forest into that smouldering wasteland, you know, and we thought that's just ridiculous. Right. And by that time we were confident, and there was more people, and it was we were organised, and we had our media outlets organised, and we had community support, and networks of information about what was happening, and that blockade was pretty strong because
Were you arrested?
I always tried to avoid getting arrested because I didn't see much point. It was touch and go, though, wasn't it? No, I've never been arrested actually. I mean, I think people who got arrested did so deliberately, pretty much. And sometimes I was just lucky, you know. They just picked on the more weird-looking protesters or people doing stupid things. I never did stuff like locking onto anything or that put me right in that position. The only time being arrested is probably productive is if there is a good media presence. And I always believed that if there wasn't a media presence, it was pretty much a waste of time. And that time it was Geneseo, but there were a few other cases. Well, I was just fortunate, you know, like there were 12 people arrested at a wild dog, and I camped up there the couple of days before, and I just went home the night before, and the next morning 12 people were arrested. It was just luck of the draw.
So of any of the areas where you've been, which was saved from logging?
Oh yeah, well, chance that was safe. Yeah, just due to tree sticks mostly, and Neil's up the tree, or was it nothing with Neil up the tree? Sitting right high up in the trees. I was hanging in there, anyhow. And people locking onto bulldozers, and they were actually threatening to go and start throwing trees with lorries people in danger, which just galvanised the entire group to confrontation with the police.
So are you happy now that the Great Otway National Park was declared? Because it was declared in 2002.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. It's a bit of a compromise because half of it is people's park, which means that they can drive forward drives and trail bikes and stuff around and get firewood and stuff, but that's better than Clearfield. Anything's better than Clearfield. No, it's fantastic, and I think ultimately that there will be a huge increase in jobs as a direct result of that, as compared to 60 odd people who are contracting in Queensland.
In what way will they get the jobs?
Through tourism, through accommodation, restaurants, eco tours, all of that. Just more people coming to the area to look at the nature. A lot of people, just the normal tourist people, terribly intimidated by loggers. I mean, log trucks. Well, that's what they do. They intimidate people. And even the department, well, at that time it was DNRE, they would intimidate people too. I know people who were approached in the forest and given a hell of a hard time about what they were doing there when they were just tourists. DNRE seemed to think that they owned it. and being very politically naive, it took me a long time to work out the relationships between the government and the NRE and the bloggers and I still don't understand it completely because bureaucrats stick to their guidelines which are made by the politicians and they're totally inflexible. But at the same time I always had the feeling that there was collusion behind the scenes with contractors, sawmills, exporters, wood exporters.
And can you think of a really an example of one of the big injustices that happens in the forest that you see from a community?
Well, most of them, yeah, I mean, there was some terrible injustices happened, such as young people being assaulted by loggers, deliberately assaulted in the middle of the night when they slept. I mean, that's been injustice. Most of the arrests, people knew that they were putting themselves in the firing line to be arrested, so you can hardly say it was injustice. There are probably a lot of injustices politically that I was not really aware of, which is really the big injustice. You know, one of the main arguments ever, right from the start, was that, well, we've been doing this for 100 years, so what's so special about stopping it now? It was the kind of the argument of loggers. Although in the past they didn't clear fell, and to my mind, clear felling was simply because of the technology that was available. But they always said that clear felling was in order to burn and get an even regrowth. But I never believed that, because it seemed to me that clear felling was because they had bulldozers and chainsaws, so it was easier to clear fell, where they didn't have to work around trees that they're not using, and then it could all be done by machinery, you know. So, and even the burn, they would drop napalm from helicopters to burn, and then to reseed, they'd drop seed from helicopters. So clear felling was about the technology, not about the efficiency of regrowth. Right? And so to me that was always just a lie. Okay. Well, I wasn't involved in SSP, apart from taking up food. In hindsight, I just wish I'd been a bit more on the ball, you know. I mean, I'm not a natural political animal, and I'm not a natural protester for that matter. You know, if I had my wits about me, I mean, I would have taken a camera with me, you know. Stuff like that I would have, although I rang up Geelong radio stations once, I remember, and said, you know, what about this protest that's going on with the SSP? And they sort of said, oh, we don't care. You know, and to me that's where publicity was where I was coming from. And in hindsight, I could have done more.
You played a role with when they had the tree village at Riley's.
Yes, I went up there.
And also as a communications point from.
Oh yeah, that's right. Forgotten all about that. I had the CB radio here at my house in Colorado, and thanks to some donations from people in Melbourne, I had a CB radio, and people up in the camp had a CB radio run on solar power up in the camp, and so with a bit of difficulty we could talk to each other.
And why was that important?
Well, it turned out to be crucial, absolutely crucial, because I was able to inform them when the police were coming to raid the camp. So the trouble with CB radio is that both sets have to be on for it to work. In other words, it's not like a telephone where you ring up. So for the other person to be listening, they have to have their set on. And because the people in the forest were doing other stuff, and I was doing other stuff, we had to have arranged times to both be on air, which was very tricky because we were both doing other things. But so we had a scheduled time that they were supposed to be on the air, and I would call them up, and they would tell me if they needed any water brought up or food or how it was going, and I would tell them if there was any new developments and what was going on. But the most crucial time was when we had a person who lived near the police station in Beach Forest who was sympathetic, and he rang my house, Polly Bay, in the morning and said the police are all meeting at the police station in Beach Forest, and that's the closest town to Riley's Ridge. And so I had a scheduled radio call, and I was able to tell them that the police were massing in Beach Forest ready to come and get them. So they had time to prepare themselves and to lock down and put their lock in and get themselves organised before the police arrived, which probably just about saved Riley's Ridge, because if the cops had rolled in unannounced, they might have caught them on the hop. So that was really saved the day. You know. But apart from just being, I was on CB radio probably for 6 months at least, every day pretty much, and most of it was just communication about day-to-day things. But they also had a couple of CB radios in cars, so that the car could go out driving to have a look at another coop and be in touch with the base station at Riley's Ridge or the base station here. It was useful, yeah. Well, given the difficulties of no mobile phone coverage and the fact that CB you have to have on all the time and have someone listening to it actually make it work. I mean, even then, it's pretty much a direct line of sight, so some areas it just
Okay, thanks. I just turned off the minute.
Yep. We tried to save whatever we were blockading at that particular time, but the main aim was to save the whole Otways, not just any individual group. Yeah. So that we saved Riley, Wildbelt, Chancio, and Darwin. That they were just little steps on the way to saving the whole of the Otways. And what we've saved is actually a mess that's been made over hundreds of years. So it's going to take a long time to recover. Just from memory, and a whole bunch of us went up to the Calco timber yard in the Colac, and we just hanged some banners out on the pile of logs and hanging around. It was facing a pretty main street, and it was on the weekend, and these kind of rednecks drove past and yelled out from the car. They said, "Why don't you get a job?" You know, which is just that sort of ignorant thing. And one of our mob yelled back, "It's Saturday, you idiot!" You know, it was like, that's the sort of level it gets down to. You know, it's like, all they think about is jobs and whether you've got one or not. You know, because that's how they judge the world.
I've done that with students, just done that about they project doing that.
All the things that protesters are supposed to do, you know, and it's just imagination, you know. The whole thing about you don't work, you're dirty. Well, of course you're dirty if you've been sleeping in the bush for days, and well, a lot of those people actually did work. And they finished their shift at the cafe or somewhere, and then they go up the hills and protest. It was a real clash of cultures, you know, between the old-fashioned, beer-drinking, hard-working Aussie bloke and the new generation, and there was very little ground for any sort of professional, and that was half the problem, you know. There was but it's also a little bit about like education and class as well, you know, like most of the coaches are probably better educated, and a lot of working people are like that. It's just class. You know, you can't lie. But the thing is that in all the protests that I went to, we never focused our attention on the workers, but on the fact that we wanted to stop what they were doing. And quite often people say, "Look, I've got nothing against you personally, you know, we hope that you can get a job somewhere else." And a lot of the more caring protesters were very conciliatory towards those workers, you know, and all they cared about was the actual environment, whereas the workers didn't. All they cared about was attacking the greenies. They didn't care about attacking the idea that the environment should be saved or protected. They didn't counter our concepts. They countered what they saw as unemployed smartasses interfering with their work. So we were both coming at things from different positions. So we had virtually no common ground to do anything. Not that we wanted to have common ground with the workers anyhow, because we realised that in order to get results we had to get a position. know, those sort of things, I don't know, for me, they wild. Because sometimes you can just, I remember the very first protest I went to up at Coronia Creek, I started off from a position of anger about what they were doing. And then I was surrounded by a whole group of alternative people who approached it from a totally different angle. They went there with love in their hearts virtually, and you know,
Love for the environment.
well, love for the environment, but love for the, you know, like, they weren't against the workers, and they weren't angry young men, you know, who like, you know, it just takes an while to kind of get that position. Learn something.
Well, that was with non-violent protest.
Yes, but there's a difference between being non-violent and just being angry. I mean, you can still feel abuse.